All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to this breakout session with Karen Freberg and her presentation today on building your personal brand. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items and an introduction of myself. My name is Brady Adams. I'm the Vice President of Product here at Stukent. I've been with Stukent for about a year, but I've been in higher education and higher education consulting for coming up on 3 years. So really excited to be with you today. Really excited to have Karen here with us. And I guess before we get started, first, a huge thank you from myself, the Stukent team, to all of you educators. Unprecedented times here in the world and especially in education. So as a recently promoted 5th and 3rd grade elementary school teacher, which my wife and I have the pleasure of homeschooling our kids during this time. Thank you for everything that you do for the students that you interact with and that you teach. So, again, unprecedented times, and you guys are doing a lot to continue to make sure that students are getting what they need. So, housekeeping items, use the chat for any questions you might have. Use it to introduce yourself, use it to engage with one another. We will be taking kind of note of the questions that you guys have, and we'll compile them into a document, and then we will bring all of those up for the Q&A at the end of Karen's session. So don't hesitate to use that chat and be really active. Don't forget to use ProfCon20 hashtag so that you can engage in your socials, engage in the chat. And we'll be tracking that, and we'll have an award, a $5 Starbucks gift card for the person that's most active from this session. So don't hesitate to get on, use that hashtag, and engage on all the different social media platforms that you guys are on. So real quick introduction. A lot of you heard earlier we're building out an advisory board, and Karen is a fantastic supporter of Stukent and everything that we're doing here. She is an associate professor in strategic communication at the University of Louisville, and she teaches, research, and consults in social media strategy, public relations, and crisis communication. Karen has written several books, including The Roadmap in Teaching Social Media, Digital Media Writing for Strategic Communication, and Social Media for Strategic Communications, Creative Strategies, and Research-Based Applications. Karen has also consulted and coordinated various companies in areas of social media pedagogy and certification programs such as Adobe, Facebook Blueprint, HubSpot, and more. Today's session, Karen's going to talk about personal branding, and we're really excited to have her talk today. She's going to be highlighting how to build a strong and sustainable personal brand, skills and areas that can be used to build a personal brand, ideas for building a social proof and evidence of experience in the community, and personal branding best practices on social media for 2020 and beyond. So Karen, we'll turn the time over to you. So excited. Thanks again for being here today and giving us this presentation.
Thank you so much, Brady. And I'm just really honored to be here. And I just wanted to send a special thank you to everyone at Stukent for everything that you're doing, for educators and to the future generation of professionals entering the social digital marketplace. You guys have been really spearheading this initiative. I'm just honored to be here, but also really excited to be part of the advisory board. So thank you again for that opportunity. And I see so many familiar faces coming through on the chat function, for this breakout session. So I'm really honored that you all are here. So hello, welcome. I hope you guys have been enjoying the ProfCon session event, even though everyone's here online. I wish we were in person, but there's always next year. But I'm again really excited to be here to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, because I feel that as educators and our students, we all need to know the best practices in terms of building a personal brand, but also how do we build a personal branding empire. So I was really inspired with what Scott mentioned today in his keynote about how it's been, not the easiest of times for educators. And I feel that what we have seen with educators right now is there's a lot to be expected of us. We have to do research, we have to teach, we have to be agile. All of us were this past semester in our teaching and work, but we also are getting more expectations thrown upon us about building more digital connections with the industry. How do we tie our research into creative practices that could be immediately applied in the real world? So my presentation today is about identifying what are the elements that you can do right now for your personal brand, but also, incorporate these practices into your classes with individual assignments. So I have a lot of resources. And again, I want to be here as an open book. Anything that I go over that you have questions about, I will be here, of course, throughout ProfCon, but I'm pretty much connected everywhere on social. So if you have questions, if there's anything I could do to help out, please let me know. I'm here to help. Um, so, so what we're going to be doing is first and foremost talking about exactly what personal branding is. And I get this question a lot. Everyone's like, oh, a personal brand is basically you put yourself on a website, you have social media accounts, and that's really it. But it's really more than that. A personal brand is basically essentially your online and offline exchanges that integrates a wide range of different characteristics in terms of your expertise in the given field, your personality, and your consistency in content and actions. And we always talk about how actions speak louder than words. And this really is very apparent with your personal brand, what you say, what you do, what you share, what you're able to contribute to a community. All of these components are reflective to your personal brand. And it's really, something for us as educators. And this has been something that I've talked a lot about, at the previous digital summits for Stucant, and I've done a couple of other presentations on personal branding for educators. It really is kind of the key differentiator, I think in a lot of cases, not only for our students when we are looking for applying for jobs and opportunities, but for us as educators, it could be another way for us to separate ourselves from the crowd. And one thing that I have seen since the global pandemic, at least at my university, at the University of Louisville, there's been an increased effort of making sure that educators at our university not only are, having the investment tools in our research and our teaching practices and contributions to service, but we're being encouraged to be our best advocate to kind of establish a personal brand. So I've had students in the past that basically have gotten jobs because of their personal brand. And so we're seeing a lot more industry connections say, yeah, it's fine that you have a portfolio, you have a resume, you have a cover letter, but what have you done to build a brand for yourself? What values do you articulate? What connections and experiences that you can bring to the table that is unique and different? So it's becoming an extra layer, not only for students, but for educators. And so this has been something that I've been, again, very passionate about in my role as a professor to help out not only with my students in this effort, but also other colleagues. And so I'm always open to having a Zoom call or a chat, on ways in which we can go about and do this. So this presentation is going to be really highlighting that. But it's also important for us to kind of look at our personal brand. It is somewhat our most priceless possession. It is really, how people perceive us, put value on our expertise, and really it could be a door opening to the industry. And so we are seeing more expectations thrown upon educators to have more industry connections. And I know Jenny Donahue, who's here, she has a great session to kind of talk about assignments and how to make them industry relevant here at ProfCon. So I would strongly encourage you all to sit in on our presentation because it is becoming an expectation. And if we are able to build our personal brand for ourselves as an educator, the opportunities are endless. So some of the things that I'll be talking about today in terms of my experience that I've had over the last couple of years have been solely based on my personal brand, not my research, nothing else, but it's been about how to make these connections, how to define, my brand, how to basically coordinate and build communities. So some of the practices that I'll be talking about today can be easily implemented today. It just will take a little time, a little investment, and a few resources. But if you're committed to doing this, you can get some incredible opportunities here. And so, so what I'm going to be doing right now is kind of walking through the steps on how to basically come up and build a personal brand for 2020 and beyond. So these are kind of the steps that I'm going to be kind of going over. So the first and foremost I'm going to be talking a little bit about is understanding the you brand. And so I'll go over a little bit more in detail with some of these points and how to expand your network, own your own story, making sure that your mindset is about providing versus taking, to try to create an experience, building a community. So all of these elements are just the specific steps and strategies that you might want to think about related to how do you build your brand. And so some of these are free. Some of these it can be easily done. And I think one of the things that I would recommend both to share with our students, but also like for ourselves as educators, our best advocates for ourselves. We know our story, we know who we are, and we know where we are positioned in the industry. And there's so many unique stories, so many amazing educators. And so I'm going to be actually highlighting a few of these in my talk who have really done an exceptional job. And so I have some resources, some, I guess, homework. I kind of do that in my presentations. I want to make sure that I share resources and opportunities to help everyone out. But let's get started with some of the steps. So I think this is probably one of the most important steps is to understanding the you brand. And there's so many components that make up our brand. And I don't know if you guys have ever felt that, your students feel like that you automatically as a professor just live in your office and that's all you do is you're just a professor. And so it's always funny for me when I'm going around in Louisville, whether I'm at the gym or out and about, in the community, I have students that are like, wait, you're not in your office. Like you actually have a life outside of your office. I'm like, yes, being a professor is just one of the things that I'm doing. But it really, like your brand is more than just your academic title. And it's really important for us to be able to kind of showcase this with others. And so these are some elements that I want you to kind of think about, and what makes you you. So what is your personal mission statement? So simply kind of think about what is your overall purpose, is, an educator, as a professional. What are elements that you're very passionate about? So for me, my personal mission statement is to make an impact on the field. My goal is to align industry and academia to bridge the gap between both to help the future generation and to educators. So that's my personal mission statement as a whole. Hobbies and interests. I tell my students that we are all human beings. Professors are human beings. We have various interests. My students are convinced that I'm like BFFs with Ryan Reynolds, which I'm like, well, we're connected on Twitter. But goals, would be definitely something to, maybe look forward to in the future. But like, if there's things that you like, if you're into photography, travel, cooking, like there's certain things that are of our interest. Pretty much everyone knows that I like my official drink of choice is coffee. It's a major food group, but there's things that, each of us are share that are unique, that are special, that we can have. And so I'll talk a little bit too later on about brand pillars and values. So I actually have a network to kind of articulate when you're thinking about partnerships and collaborations, how do you work with others in the industry to kind of align to what those values are. Personality characteristics. Are you an extrovert or provider, introvert? Like, how do you define yourself in terms of your, like, what are some attributes you would associate yourself with? Brand colors. I think it's important too to think about. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So, I mean, in actually the next slide, when I go over and talk a little bit about expanding your network, and then of course, partnerships and testimonials, like what type of testimonials do you have for your brand and your work? So from students, colleagues, collaborators, consulting adventures, so these are elements that we all have to think about as our disposal to kind of make us, like the brand of you. Now, when we're talking about expanding your network, so again, fair warning, I am not a graphic designer. My younger sister, Carla, is the artist in the family. I'm lucky to draw a stick figure. So, but what I wanted to kind of do is kind of show you like how really when you're building a personal branding empire to kind of think of like how your brand is really multidimensional. And so when you're looking at this, and so this is actually my little logo that my brother-in-law actually made for me. It's myself with a coffee cup, pretty standard, but it has my brand color. So at the University of Louisville, we are red, white, and blue. And then not blue. Oh, that's Kentucky. Red, white, and black. And so, but I have always loved maroon. So when I present and representing myself, I usually wear these colors because it's, something that I feel very attached to. But when you're looking at you're expanding your network, Your social and digital presence is just one part of the element. You have to think about your connections to your colleagues, your friends, your family, your community, your students. But then you have to kind of look at, again, our research and presentations, what we're doing here at ProfCon, our expertise. So a lot of times we sometimes as educators get grouped in this one category that we're only known for our research and work, but we want to kind of broaden that out. So one of the things that the University of Louisville is doing, especially with our president, she's really looking at providing more opportunities to get credit for promotion and tenure that are tied more to these brand collaborations. So over the years, I've been really honored and excited to be working with some incredible brands and companies on topics related to social media, to pedagogy work. So I've had a chance to work with a wide range of companies. And then what's been really exciting over the last couple of years is the exciting development that I've had with bringing in some real world clients. So I know that Scott talked a lot about bringing real world clients and the importance of this for our students. And so we've had a chance to work with some amazing companies. And so this upcoming fall, I know John Hernandez is here from New Mexico. So I'm actually, very thankful to have met Adam from Chipotle. So we're actually working with Chipotle this fall for a class 9. But this all resulted through social media, networking, correspondence, personal branding. So it's really exciting. But I want you to kind of think about, what is your network? What are your extensions? But everything should come back to your personal brand, like what your mission statement, your brand pillars, what we talked about, your you brand. So those are things that I want you guys, again, for homework assignments, kind of see how you would map up your personal branding network. Now, so when you're looking at extending your content creation for the new norm, so when you're building your brand, you want to, of course, highlight the major things that are associated with your digital presence. Being on the social media channels, having a blog, having content, on your website, but you want to maybe extend some of those things to try something out new, like develop a brand kit. So one of the exercises and assignments that I actually had the first time I ever did it, for my class this past semester, was actually developing a media kit. And I think all of us have opportunities to present not only to at academic conferences, but we have opportunities to speak at industry level opportunities as well. So I would encourage you guys to think about if there was something that I could do to create my own personal branding media kit to send out to people, what would it have? And so I actually have an assignment that I give my students, but I actually did it myself to kind of see what I could do to kind of promote myself internally. Set up a newsletter. That is one thing that you do. If you have built a community that you feel that you have a lot to share, that you want to educate and provide to people, go for that. We'll talk a little bit about the community and how you can basically build that very easily and be able to do video tutorials. I would say that this has actually been something that I had put as a priority for myself during the quarantine. To be perfectly honest, when it comes to video, I know enough to get myself into trouble. But I felt like with COVID-19 and everyone going remotely, I'm like, okay, Karen, you need to be one with video editing. And that has actually been able to open up a wide range of different opportunities. And so because I think with video, you get to humanize your brand a little bit more. You get to showcase your expertise, your personality, everything in one package. So these are elements that I would strongly consider as well. This is a big point, and again, kind of talking about personal branding, you have to be your best advocate. Again, you there's so many opportunities for academia to tell your story. And one of the challenges that I still see here in 2020 is there's still professionals out there that do not realize, one, there are companies like Student that are really doing innovative things to help educators and students alike. But two, there are still people out there in the industry who do not realize that we're out there. And we basically have to own our story and be our best advocates for ourselves. So this is something that I'm very passionate about. And so you really are able to kind of showcase your expertise. And I really think video really does this very well. And this could be anything from YouTube walkthroughs and tutorials, but it could also be on Instagram. It could be video recaps from conferences. So I know I've been trying to do that a lot at the various events. But again, it humanizes your brand, but you're able to own your story. So no one else is telling your narrative, but you get to show yourself. And so it is that level of investment for a personal brand that over time, more people will be like, wow, this is like Jenny, like she's amazing. I can't wait to see her speak. And so like, it just kind of percolates over time where you're able to build upon that. So testimonials are great. You see those on LinkedIn, but you also have connections in the field that really kind of showcase your expertise. And this is another big one too, like for personal branding. Like one thing that I think is important for us, especially right now where everyone is kind of figuring out like what to do for the fall semester. uh, Louisville's still deciding. We're kind of probably going over to a hybrid model, but it really does not cost anything to be kind, and we're all in the same boat here. I'm an open book. I know so many professors. I know Scott has been really open with his assignments and what he's been able to do. His BuzzFeed assignment is like legendary. It's like GOAT status, in my opinion. Like if there was a Hall of Fame for assignments, that should be it. Um, and so there's a lot of people that basically promote and sell their personal brands, but really you want to be authentic. You want to be authentic, you want to be transparent, you want to be real. Like, so if we were having the same conversation in Las Vegas, like I would be exactly the same. But so you really, again, that like with the personal branding definition that I had, making sure that you have that online aspect, but also offline as well. Because there's been a few conferences where I've met someone and followed someone online, and then I meet them in person and I realize, did I have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moment here? Because these are completely two different people. You don't want that. You don't want any discrepancies. You want to be true. And my grandfather used to say, one of his more iconic lines and best points of wisdom for me and my sisters growing up was one set of manners, one way of doing things. So how you present yourself online should be exactly how you present yourself offline. And actions speak louder than words. And so really taking the time to help others in this need. And I feel that's one of the things that I feel is very wonderful about StuCan is these opportunities for all of us to come together, to share knowledge, to be able to provide insights that will help better the community. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to better our community. We want to help our students get jobs and be marketable. We want to make our field, prominent, and we all want to help each other. And that's really at the end of the day. So really, it's again kind of like that mindset change where if you're able to provide value, provide insights, provide access, mentorship, it's really amazing, to be able to kind of showcase that. So that's something to be kind, and be aware of. So launch an experience. And so this could be digital or in person. Like we're all part of Zoom University pretty much. If you just even had like a happy hour, or if you said, hey, I know that all of us are kind of coming together. Let's do a Twitter chat. So there's a really great professor at the University of Florida. Her name is Brianne Fleming. So she has a podcast, but she also has a regular Twitter chat that focuses on marketing of pop culture called Pop Chat. And she really has created a nice digital experience. And so again, this is for free. She's able to do this and launch it. It takes initiative. And so it's really about kind of tying in like a core value that you have, right, into expanding that for other people to experience. And so I would encourage you guys to think about if there's something that you could do, whether it's a webinar and maybe a meetup, Zoom call, or in the case that we had a chance to do last year, was at Cannes Lions. So Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, I would say, is kind of like the Oscars for our community. And so I was very passionate to see an event that really would bridge academia and industry together. So last year was the first time where we were able to really have that event. So, and it's about just, reaching out to people and saying, is this possible? And so it just actually took a blog post for me when a few years ago when I went the first time. And I'm like, yeah, I think that this needs to happen. I think an educator summit, needs to occur. And then little did I know that Cannes Lions reached out to me. So, it's about maybe providing that ask, kind of looking to see what you can do to kind of bring things together. If you don't see something happening, it's, a good opportunity, an opportunity for you to be able to launch it yourself. So, although we are not meeting in Cannes, I actually was supposed to fly to Cannes right after ProfCon originally, but the event is going to be happening again in 2021. So if you guys have questions about the Educator Summit, really Cannes Lions is really becoming more invested in bridging the gap between educators and students, and so it's a great opportunity to be a part of. So I think it's also something to diversify your brand in different areas and audiences. So I think a lot of times as educators and even with our students, we get kind of comfortable in one area. We're like, okay, we're in our group, we're in our academic conferences, and we might go to, a different conference or two. I think it's important for us to broaden our horizons and extend. So I would say over the last couple of years, I've still done the academic conferences because again, I'm an associate professor going, again, I have the tenure track. I still have to publish. I still have to do all the traditional things that I have to do. But I've extended myself a bit more with the industry, making those contacts, like with Adobe, with HubSpot, with Canned Lions, with Facebook, to be able to kind of explore an extension to kind of show too that, again, I wanted to also kind of expand the perception of what it means to be a modern day professor. And I think all of us here at StuCAD, I'm preaching to the choir because all of us here are innovative, strategic, aligned with the growing trends that are happening in the industry. So the StuCAD has really built that community for us. And I'm very grateful for that. But we need to advocate for ourselves in different audiences. So I would encourage you to maybe make like a mid-year resolution to kind of see if you can extend yourself to other areas in the industry. So you could talk about your brand. So every different touch points that you have is important. So I see that Max and Kelly are talking about the Educator Summit. So yes, Kelly was amazing. She was a rock star at last year's summit. And Max, yes, there is an Educators Affordable conference. And I actually did the calculation that it's actually more affordable than it was to go to Canned Lions than to the Public Relations Society of America conference. So Canned Lions, French Riviera, San Diego. So that I did those calculations. So I'd be happy to share with you the costs associated with that. And I'm really pleased, to see in the chat function so many kind words about the SM Profs community. And thank you, Stu, also for your kind words. And so building communities can help build your personal brand. So by offering resources, kind of taking the notion of providing versus taking and bringing people together, there's nothing more rewarding to be able to help each other. And so the Social Media Professors Group, if you're not a member, I would love to have you join us. There's such a dynamic group of individuals that really share openly all the different resources that they have. But really, while the community is not owned by like one person, it's really owned by hundreds of thousands, like not hundreds of thousands. Hopefully we'll get there that one day, but we have over 1,700 members and the community belongs to them. And so for me to be able to kind of say, hey, this is a great place for us to share content, but ideas, help each other, and then bring in the industry together. I think we needed that space. We needed a place where we could have conversations with a great team at StuCAD or Facebook or HubSpot or Hootsuite. All of the tech companies are there. And it's so important for us to connect. So there's many groups and many professors who've created their own group. So we have an advertising professors community. There's a digital marketing professors community on Facebook. So if there's a subject that you love teaching and you're thinking, I want to talk with like-minded people. I want to be able to kind of be an advocate for this community. Building a community is not something that happens overnight. It takes a long time. So like SM Profs will be celebrating its 4th year anniversary in October. And it really has grown over the years, power of word of mouth. So it really, if this is something you wanted to do, whether it's a Twitter chat on Twitter, or it's a Facebook group, or it's completely, on another platform, think about ways that you can bring people together. Because again, like that could be an alignment for what you want to do. Now, I've had some questions over the years about, okay, Karen, you've worked with brands, educators, can we have these partnerships? How do we go about in doing this? And so I want to spend the next couple of slides talking a little bit about this. And so what you want to do is you want to connect the why you're engaging with brands. So the brands that I've been working with have been aligned with my values. The perspectives that I share, like bridging the gap between academia and industry, but also consider yourself these following questions. Are you a fan? Do you use your products? So I've actually done some work with Adidas. We're an Adidas school at U of L, but I also love their products. And so what I have always wanted to do is, you have to authentically believe in the product, that similar to what we talk about with students with, influencers and stuff, like you have to, fully believe and use their products to, really be transparent. but have an open invite to brands. What I did this past semester related to COVID is realizing that everyone also was at home. I invited a lot of guest speakers, to come to my class and just give them an open view of like what it's like to teach in 2020 related to COVID. Like, what's it like to be in a social media class and being able to come together, and be able to promote and engage the experience, but yeah, reach out to brands. So I tell my students that a lot of people are not mind readers, so sometimes you have to take the initiative. If there's a brand that you really are like, wow, it'd be amazing to not only work with them with a class client, but it'd be great, to have some sort of partnership where we're able to bounce around ideas. So the brand partnership, alignment is not always like a financial gain. It's more of an experience and relationship. And so there's been times where I'm like, hey, this would be a great opportunity for us to collaborate and work. We have similar alignments. And so think about ways in which you can create a win-win situation. And that's a really important element, is you don't want to be taking just everything from the industry, but think about things that you can provide, like that will help them, like based on your research expertise, your teaching, being able to work on a project that might help them answer a question. These partnerships that create win-win situations help foster a strong relationship that then again, you're able to promote, it showcases evidence, and then again helps amplify your personal brand. So those are elements to consider. Now, so again, as I mentioned, I am not a graphic designer, but I wanted to kind of show when you're looking at brand values and networks. So these are elements that I have here, in terms of my values. So you see academia and industry, that's a big one for me to kind of bridge the gap between both of these areas. So most of the partnerships that I've worked on have been in that category. So what I'd like you guys to think about are, what are 6 values that you have? And then think about brands that one you like, that you trust, that you value, or it could be nonprofits, it could be small businesses, et cetera, and consider like which ones would fall into those categories. So you see with local, Breeders' Cup was one of them. It's a world championship horse racing event because Louisville, Kentucky, we like our horses, but it was held locally. And so I've been very passionate about helping local businesses, nonprofits here in Louisville. But like there's been some that of course are research driven, education initiatives driven, or consumer driven. So Chipotle falls under that because like when I was a track and field athlete, that was my meal of choice, was going there. So I feel like that is right around my alignment, but I'm still working on a coffee collaboration, still working on that. So I still have my homework to do, but just think about that. So, but then also when you're looking at other ways to align your brand, research your brand interests. What are the benefits and challenges of partnering with brands in the industry for your personal brand? But then reach out. There's been a couple of cases where I've reached out just to say, okay, like they don't teach you this in in your doctoral studies as a PhD student. So I basically, reached out to a few, brands myself over my career and said, okay, here's who I am, here's my interest, here's, some of the things that I would love to work on. And so that not every brand would answer, but, as you get experience in formulating these relationships and opportunities, more come your way. And the more experience you have, it kind of is like a snowball effect. So really provide the benefits and rationale along with evidence. So when you're looking at your personal brand, there's a lot of people that say, I have a personal brand. And you're like, okay, no, don't tell me you have a personal brand. Show me what you've done. Show me the experience that you have. Show me the data. Like, exact, so when you're working with brands, you really want to provide that story with them. And then engage. Like, I'm a big believer of over delivery. I'm a big believer of basically articulating what you're able to do, but then extend that. Like, because again, you're like, okay, it's like this surprise and delight. Like, wow, okay, I didn't expect that. Provide evidence of an actual social proof of the collaboration. So for us, with the Breeders' Cup, for example, we like my students and I were able to do the PR and social media for the event. So, it was a big project, a big opportunity. But we were also, because we were doing such a prominent local event, I had been doing some work with Adobe, and Adobe was like, we have this new product coming out that's, basically a social video product that will help create videos on the fly, which eventually turned into Adobe Premiere Rush. Like, could you try it out? And so we were one of the first classes to try it out. And that resulted in Adobe coming out to see the final presentations, and we got featured on their blog, which then led to opportunities to be able to work with Facebook the following year, and then this upcoming year with Chipotle. So you want to be able to build evidence and kind of this package. So then if you're looking for specific opportunities, you're able to do that. So those are elements that are really important. So as I mentioned with the classroom activities, I know that we have a few more minutes. So you might be asking, okay, how can professionals, or like how can students go about and doing, this kind of work for their personal brand? Because I mean, with students, like I know, especially with COVID-19 in Louisville, especially, we have a huge tourism and hospitality industry. So a lot of my students were working in those industries, and they all got laid off or they were furloughed. And so they were like coming into classes through Zoom, and they were like, okay, Dr. Freberg, how can we market ourselves in this new norm? How can we build ourselves? So these were several of the steps that I went through to make sure that they had experience. First and foremost, I think every student needs to do a personal brand audit. This has been one of the most eye-opening assignments for my students, because they think, oh yeah, I know how to present myself, but they like when they're thinking it from a strategic lens, like, oh, I didn't realize that all the TikTok videos that I was sharing could actually impact my reputation. I'm like, yeah. So, and there's a lot of ways to kind of find out like how you're presenting yourself, and Google does not forget. So there's an audit assignment that I use that's really, I think, a self-reflection. So I think it's important for students to be able to have that experience to really look at their brand online from a whole different lens in terms of how they really are perceiving is like what messages, what attributes, and points they want to communicate is it reflective of what they're sharing online with their personal brand. So again, that kind of offline, online discrepancy. So if there's any discrepancy, the students are like, okay, I need to fix this. So an audit assignment is crucial. But then I also launched a media kit assignment. So this is something where I have my students create a website and blog. So they're regularly creating content. But a lot of my students already, I don't know if you guys have talked about this with your students, like some of my students would come in with these massive followings on Instagram, and they're like, yeah, I have like 30,000 followers because I'm very passionate about local foodware. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you build that. That's awesome. Or they build a whole community that they're able to kind of, communicate with and share. And I'm like, that's huge. Like, and I tell them like, that's real world experience that you can do. And you need to talk about that. So a media kit assignment is the part 2 of a personal branding audit. So I tell the students, okay, analyze your brand, kind of figure out what you want to be known for, what are things that you're passionate about. But the media kit is about positioning your brand. So then you're able to share that with employers if you want to have industry contacts, or a lot of my students want to build their own consulting business. They don't necessarily want to go the corporate route or the agency route. They want to be an entrepreneur. So it's an opportunity for them to send out to small businesses and others about their services. So it's about advocating and telling their story in a packaged way. So I have a walkthrough with the assignment. I'd be more than happy to share that with everyone too. And then the other thing that I did too is giving students practice with creating a highlight video reel of their presentations. And so Prezi Video, I know everyone's probably used Prezi presentations over the years, but they have a feature that I found out about earlier this year that I had no idea. But my friend Brian Fanzo was sharing this, and I'm like, this is a fantastic for virtual presentations instead of doing PowerPoint. But they could, like, students could do a video pitch on their brand, who they are, and embed that in a video or include that in a website or a blog to kind of show and upload on YouTube. So I actually have a walkthrough on how to do that as well. So these links here, and I know everyone's going to have access to the slides. So those are walkthroughs that I've created. But if anyone has any additional questions about how to go about and doing this, I'd be more than happy to help out. Resources in the last couple of minutes. So I wanted to give some shout outs to some amazing professors with personal brands. So I know that Scott is here. So Scott is the GOAT, I would say, as ProfCon. But there's several others that I feel like I always learn from our community. We have some amazing professors, amazing educators in our community that are doing incredible things, not only in their research, their teaching, but they have strong personal brands. I would highly recommend Karen, like if you are not familiar with Karen Sutherland down at the University of the Sunshine Coast, she is epic. Not only does she have a great name, but she is a practitioner, a researcher, a teacher, like a consultant. I mean, she's she makes coffee look tired, but she is amazing. So if you want to look at someone who's really, really done an exceptional job with her personal brand, look for it. And so Amanda Russell is also at ProfCon. So she has a new book out on influencer marketing. So she's really specialized in that area. So she's someone to look at. Jen Bennett from Wake Forest is really good in terms of promoting her brand. But again, I want to give thanks to Scott, like, who really is so generous with providing resources, guidance, and assignments for the community. So I think that he's really established his expertise and presence in our community with his personal brand by really doing some really good work to help all of us out. Matt Cushon too is wonderful. His blog is like, again, a must read. I mean, he is just so generous with his opportunities. But then I also want to give a shout out to Mark. So if your students are looking for internships and jobs, MEO Jobs that's Mark, like that's his project. And so we've been talking a lot about how SM Profs and MEO Jobs can work together. And so this is again, really what he's been able to do with his brand and kind of providing resources is really great. So these are, again, some free strategies and opportunities. It's really important. So creative content production. So I got to give a shout out to Leo, who's also in the other breakout session at the same time, but he is amazing. So he has several shows and a podcast. It's really great. And then Brianne has a great podcast. We had a chance to talk for the first time all about aviation gin with actually the senior brand manager, Adrienne Molina, on that. So she's fantastic. She has a Twitter chat. And so like there's so many different opportunities here. Last thing I want to do, and I'll open up to Q&A right as soon as we are done here. But I have readings. I can't help it. I'm a professor. I have homework. So, but I have a couple of articles that I wanted to share with you, like in terms of how to build a personal brand, like some 10 rules for personal branding. But Facebook Blueprint and HubSpot have some resources on that. But then for Adweek, one thing that I would recommend is checking out the Academic Council on Adweek. So I didn't realize this until a few weeks ago, to be honest. Like Adweek, the popular trade publication, has an academic council, and you can actually sign up to be a contributor for free. So homework, and so because one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of write there is because that was a goal of mine, like to be able to write for an industry level publication. And so when I was seeing some of the professors listed there, I'm like, well, okay, most of them are advertising and marketing. I'm coming in from Stratcom, but I was able to write a guest commentary about the new marketable skills that are needed for students, because it was around the same time as graduation, and these were all questions that I was getting from my students and educators. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write an article for it. So I would check that out. That's, again, a great resource. But again, that if you're able to add that again to your level of experience, your expertise and connections, that could also amplify and help your brand. So definitely check out Adweek Academic Council. So, but yeah, I will open up to Q&A. So I do have my handle at the bottom of the screen. So at K Freberg, and then my email. I am pretty much connected like all the time to my phone and email. So but I'd be more than happy to extend the conversation if there's things that I can help out with, if you have questions about the SM Profs community. But again, I'm really grateful to Stucan for this opportunity to be able to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And yeah, I'd love to help out in any way I can. So I will take questions now.
Erin, thanks so much. So we've been compiling a list of questions from the chat along the way, so we'll just jump right into it. We had a question from Rosemary Conforti, and she said, what's a good resource for brand color options and guidance in choosing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've actually used some of, like, Adobe actually has some brand color palettes. Like, so before I forget, like with Adobe, if any of you are interested in the creative side of things, Adobe Max, their annual creative conference is actually free this year. It's going to be all virtual, so sign up for that. But Adobe actually has some great color palettes. So actually, one of the things that I was kind of doing is they had this quiz, and I can look to see if I can find the link and make sure to tweet that out. But they actually had like a color palette that actually kind of looked at your personality. Like they picked fonts, like we were able to kind of pick and choose, like, okay, what font represents my personality? And so it was like one of those BuzzFeed quizzes, but not BuzzFeed, if that makes sense. So that's one resource. But yeah, I mean, I would say too, like, I've always loved the color maroon, so that was always been something that I've always enjoyed, wearing. So I've really kind of stuck with that. That's been just something that I've naturally been gravitated to. So there's a lot of color palettes that are out there, but that I would recommend. I'll look around, to make sure that I share the Adobe one, because that was helpful for me to kind of see, oh, okay, this is why I'm choosing these colors, because these are the attributes for color. So that I wanted to communicate. So
cool. Great. Thanks. We had another question come in from Max. He said, what tools would a novice college educator use to edit a video and give it a more professional touch?
That's a great question. So speaking from someone, I am definitely still a novice video editor, but I personally got, when I looked at Adobe Premiere, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of features. There's a lot of things I can kind of mess up and do. But I would really look at Adobe Premiere Rush. And so one, if you have Creative Cloud, it's included. But two, it's so much easier to work with and edit. You have all of the features and things you could do in Adobe Premiere, but without the complete chaos, almost of all the features and layers and everything. And so for me, if I can do it, I would say video editing was definitely not my major skill set, but I would recommend that. Splice is another one, especially if you are into TikTok. So related to Adobe Premiere Rush. Adobe Premiere Rush is also the only third-party video editing tool that it has a specific exclusive agreement with TikTok. So when I basically was showing my students TikTok videos and I was doing them myself, I could show them saying, yeah, this is, ways you can edit, tools in TikTok, through Adobe Premiere Rush. So that would be my recommendation. It's a very easy tool. It's accessible on your phone, tablets, computer. There's tons of resources and tools. And so I'd be happy to, help out, provide some additional resources on that as well.
Awesome. Another question, and this is another question about video. And it was, do live videos have the same lasting impact as edited videos?
That's a great question. I would say that with live videos, you're able to capture the experience in the moment, where in edited videos, you're oh, I'm doing a walkthrough through, Zoom, or here's a presentation. But with live videos, similar to what we're doing here, you're able to have that engagement, right? So if you go live on Twitter, Instagram, or, Facebook, or even LinkedIn, you're able to kind of build that community. So really the question is, what's your strategy? What's your overall goal in the video? Is it to inform people so they can come back to it over and over again? So a recorded, edited video might be appropriate there. But if you wanted to kind of capture a real exclusive, real time experience, then a live video would be really good. So it really comes down to the strategy and tactics that you want to implement and overall goals of the video.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. And then we had a question from Scott Cowley. He said, what are the pros to working with larger brands versus small businesses?
That's a great question, Scott. Thank you. So when I started at the University of Louisville, I started really small. I actually started inwardly, at the University of Louisville, because when I moved to Louisville, I knew only my colleagues. I didn't know the businesses or, the professionals in the community. So I really spent my first couple of years really building those relationships. So for me, working with the small companies, you're able to make a lot of impact. So we were able to work with a lot of different teams internally and departments, and you really kind of saw the impact. But I felt like the Breeders' Cup for me was the biggest. We've done local businesses and clients before, but the Breeders' Cup really kind of brought, I would say, the spotlight on my work, and I got more attention, for the work that I was doing. I had done some collaborations already with HubSpot and Hootsuite, but Adobe paid attention. They're like, oh wow, we've seen you, at the Creative Campus events, and we've seen you, doing Adobe, but you're bringing in a world championship client, at a global stage. That's pretty impactful. So I'd say the benefit is exposure, absolutely, and that's led to actually, because of that exposure, more, again, reputation within the community and the university, where I actually have an ongoing conversation, and I'm brought in a lot by the university president to meet with alumni, to donors, and they're saying, hey, look, we have this professor here who is doing XYZ in her classroom. They're bringing in clients. And so we've gotten some donors to specifically help us out because they're like, yeah, I want, like, they want to see the university kind of thrive in, these new marketable skills, but also they're like, well, we want to hire some students who know how to do this. So they want to kind of have first dibs on the graduates. So that's been good. But it's also, like, I would say the other benefit is it's led to more opportunities. It's just a snowball effect. So, Breeders' Cup led to Facebook Blueprint, and then Facebook Blueprint again, we're going to be working this upcoming fall with Chipotle. And so that experience, and so the project that we're working on with them in the fall is very aligned to students too. So, and they're excited. I'm excited. My students are like bouncing off the walls. They're like, can we work on this? I'm like, guys, enjoy your summer. Well, there'll be a lot of work in the fall, but you can do things ahead of time. But it's, just exposure and impact too. And there's just so many brands who are just waiting for educators to open the door. Because I know when I was in the PhD program at the University of Tennessee, like just hearing, some of the things, it's interesting how the academic industry has changed so much. Like, I remember going to academic conferences where we were told, you can't work with brands, you can't work with industry, you only can work with these audiences. And I remember thinking, well, where's that written down? Where's that rule? I want to see that rule to kind of see why we can't do that. So, I mean, that's kind of the other reason why I wanted to work with brands, is to kind of say, yeah, I want to give my students a seat at the table. Like, I want to make sure that they understand that they can make an impact in some way, even with the big brands, whether it's an idea, perspective, additional research. It's a huge learning opportunity. I'm again very grateful to the companies and brands that I've been able to work with. So, and I would encourage everyone to kind of think about who they would love to work for. So, I mean, for me, if I worked for Starbucks, I'd be like, you can just, send me free coffee, and I'd be like happy as a clam. But that's ultimate goals.
Awesome. Thanks again, Karen. Just before we wrap up, I wanted to announce the winner of the most engaged for this session. And Catherine Hillman is our winner for this session. Catherine, will get you a $5 Starbucks gift card. Great insights on socials. Lots. Thanks to everyone who commented in the chat here on during Karen's session. But Catherine went above and beyond and got engaged with the socials outside of the chat. So thanks, Catherine. Karen, thank you again. You do an amazing job of finding that balance between building a personal brand and being authentic and genuine, and which a lot of us see as such a positive impact compared to some of the other, self-promotion or gloating and going over the top with being in your face all the time. And you do just an amazing job of giving building your personal brand while doing it in a way that is just really impactful to the education community. So thanks for everything you do. Thanks for your presentation. And we've got about 7 minutes before the next session begins. So everybody stand up, take a break, and get ready for the next session. So Karen, thank you again very much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Brady. It was an honor. And thank you, everyone, for the great questions and comments. It's truly an honor, and keep up the great work. And I will see you guys at the other sessions.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care.